Judy from Patterns for Pirates, and I'm going to show you how I would grade sizes for a youth wrap dress if they had a different height and a different width on the measurement chart. My little girl happens to be a 3 width and a 5 length, so that's what I'm going to be showing you today. But any difference in size, you could do a different width than length, just like I'm going to do today. I am going to have my pattern pieces and a highlighter, and I'm just going to highlight where I would cut on my pattern pieces. So let's jump in. Alright, here we are with the youth wrap dress pieces. I'm going to start with the back. It's really nice and simple, just like you would grade any other one. Again, my daughter is a 3 width, which is the solid line, and a 5 length, which is the dotted line. I printed in black and white, so I'm sorry if that makes it slightly harder. But let's start on the fold. I'm going to do a knee with flounce because the flounces are a little bit more difficult to grade for. So we'll start in this easy fold line. I'm going to go up and down all the way to the 5s. I'm going to go across all the way to the 5 width here. This is a very important cheat that I highly suggest for this is whatever length your little one needs that you're sewing for, just go ahead and do the length and the width of the flounce. That way you don't have to worry about grading that really funky flounce piece, and it will save you a huge headache. I'm going to do the 5 neckline and shoulder. Just because the little one is thin, usually they still have the frame of their height. So I go ahead and go with the neckline and shoulders of the height. Once I get to here is where you really want to grade. You're going to imagine that you're going to move it over. So you still want to keep that 90-degree right here. And this is really a personal preference. My daughter actually doesn't have very thin arms, so I usually keep the total width and length of the height. But if your little one happens to have a very short, no, I'm sorry, not short, very thin arms, you might want to come in a little bit right here. I have a 3 to a 5, that's a pretty big jump. If it's only one size, you could probably fit down. If you were like my daughter and doing 2 sizes, I would suggest only going in to the 4 because they usually really need that full arm size of their height. My daughter happens to not have very thin arms, so I usually use the full 5 sleeve completely. I'm going to grade in, and I'm going to grab my, so sorry I did not have that ready, my smaller French curve here. This makes grading so much easier. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the waist at the 3, and I'm going to grade out to this 5 sleeve. A nice smooth line. Now what I'm going to do is the same thing, except for I'm going to find the 5 width down here. A nice smooth, and this one is actually a little bit small for mine. So again, even though she's a 3 width, I'm going to give her the 5 width at the flounce cut line, because now I don't have to grade this flounce cut line. And the difference between the widths at the bottom of the skirt is not going to make a huge fit difference for them. So hers is going to flare out slightly more than a straight 3, but overall it's much, much easier if you just go with the length and the width of one flounce and you don't worry about grading it. Let's do the front piece now. Alright, I'm going to start up here at the neckline. Again, I suggest using their height. as a base for the neckline. I give my daughter the full 5 sleeve. If you want to grade in slightly on the width there, just make sure that when you grade in, you are giving that nice straight 90-degree start, or else when you sew your sleeves together, they won't make a perfect oval down here. So when you use your ruler, make sure you just go straight for about 1/2 inch and then curve up. Again, I give her the full 5 because she doesn't have very thin arms. She doesn't need the smaller width there. Okay, and I am doing the knee with flounce, which is right here. Nope, that's the shirt. I'm so sorry. Knee with flounce for the 5 is right here. Okay, so I'm gonna start at the 5, and I am going to slowly go into my 3 waist. I am going to use the waist markings of a 5. This is where her waist is. And you know what? I graded into this 3 waist right here. And what I should have done is marked this waistline. And this needs to be the smallest point of her waist. So I'm actually going to redraw that where the waist is down here. Changed ever so slightly. And then I'm going to mark my 5 straight across. I do the 5 neckline because again, that's how tall she is, and this is where her waist is. I graded out to the 5 width here so that I can easily, this is a full 5 flounce length now. Okay, a few more things that I was just going to touch on. Flutter sleeve, I use the full 5 for my daughter, so I would completely trace off the 5 sleeve for her. If you graded in, you would have to grade in the width on the sleeves as well, and you could grade out to the length that you wanted if you didn't want her sleeves shorter. A few more things to touch on. The waist ties. The waist ties are going to be long enough to go around their waist, plus long enough to have a tie and some fairly long tails. So I prefer to give my daughter in between the 3 and the 5. Her waist is a 3, but her length is a 5. So when I tie them around her waist, she needs the 3, but I want the tails to be as long as they're supposed to be. So she needs a little bit more length than the 3 since she's a 5 length. Honestly, you can pick whichever size you want. This isn't going to make too much of a difference. But whichever one you do on the long tie, do on the short tie as well, so that they're even once you tie them. This is the neckline binding. I suggest doing the full height. So I would go out to the 5 completely. No grading necessary there. This is the tank. Again, on the tank, I use the full 5 length and width on my daughter. So I would go out to the 5. If you graded in the width to a 4 or a 3, that's where you would want to cut. It's not going to be a perfect equation here because if you did the 5 height but only the 3 width, it's not going to be a perfect 3 and it's not going to be a perfect 5. It's about 90% if you just want to calculate your own on the binding. I usually go with a full 5 arm side. If I take the width in a little bit, I just take it in a little bit. Alright guys, I hope that helps on the grading. If you choose to do it this way, where you just do the full length and width of the flounce, there's no grading necessary on those crazy flounce pieces. So that is why I highly suggest doing it this way on this particular pattern. I hope this helps, and I hope you can create the perfect fit for whoever you're sewing for.